India affords a vast range and variety of classical traditions that have been born out of a sense of worship and divinity. A certain spiritual content has always been its mainstay. It has also been essentially the art of a soloist, except in dance theatre forms. Over 2000 unbroken years, it has grown to become the longest continuous dance culture in the world, affording an interesting insight into man and his relationship to stage in general and the dance art in particular. Its classical nature comes through by a set of code of grammar, content, and concept. Thus, if one form knees are bent while performing and half-sitting positions are maintained all through, then it cannot be altered. That is the style's characteristics. The position of hands, the use of eyes, neck, torso, feet all go towards making dance units which belong and become strings of movement through which individual characteristics and a grammar is set which makes each form distinct and thus with age and tradition classical. Which is why we call these styles classical, because it has antiquity, age, tradition and continuity. The content is mostly mythological. These forms evolved over centuries and it is believed these were created to please gods and their representatives on earth. The myth goes that the gods were bored and asked the wisest among them, Brahma, the creator, to create some form of entertainment that would involve and engage all. Brahma enlisted the help of sages, of whom Bharata was given the specific task of writing a new Veda, the holy treatise of which four existed already: Rigved, Samaved, Yajurved and Atharvaved. I am sure all of you know of these four Vedas, but the fifth Veda, which then Brahma entrusted Bharata Muni to write, was called Natya Shastra. And through this work, the details of modern dramaturgy, dance, drama, music in totality in India was born. When the gods saw their own stories enacted on the celestial stage, they were pleased and blessed the enterprise. Thus, dance dramas were born. They then requested Brahma that the same be taken to planet Earth, where by listening to such tales, human beings would benefit by what is moral and what is righteous. Earthlings would live pious lives, and these stories enacted through dance, drama and music will help reinstate myths and traditions. Thus, the art of dance drama were born to enlighten, entertain and educate human beings. Over centuries, these dance and drama traditions have crystallized to 7 main classical dance forms of India: Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi from south on east coast in state now called Tamil Nadu, Kathakali from Kerala on southern west coast, Mohiniyattam also from the same region, Kathak from north and central India, and Odissi from east and Manipuri from extreme northeast. In 2002, additions like Satriya from Assam in northeast have been added out of bureaucratic and political considerations. This way, national poet Rabindranath Tagore's amalgamation of different forms too now seeks recognition as a form called Rabindranatyam. Regional aspirations fueled by ready-to-please bureaucrats and politicians wanting to become popular sometimes means some new forms will be added once in a while. Each of the principal 7 styles, Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, Manipuri, Kuchipudi and Odissi, has set grammar and language and are practiced and taught traditionally from master to disciple. A minimum of 10 years of training is critical to gaining some basic level of proficiency. While Kathakali was best represented example of dance drama involving many patras or characters, thus a group part, all others were art of soloist. Each form was taught in a personalized manner, and the tradition of Guru Shishya, master to disciple, was paramount. Gurus, as master teachers were called, were not found sitting in institutions waiting for students to come and pay. They were mostly benevolent father figures who took a very few students and truly talented one under their wings in preparation to groom. This process was not bound by time, money, or years, but could take a lifetime. Until the guru gave permission, a student could not perform or take to stage. Both the guru and the student had time for and commitment to art. Under a long colonial rule from 16th to 20th century ADE, most of these forms suffered from lack of patronage under the colonial rule, especially of the Britishers, whose Victorian ways and prudish nature did not permit an open celebration of the body and spirit, and who also looked down on traditional local cultures and did all to discourage it. Lord Macaulay, a certain British viceroy, further killed traditional arts by delinking culture from education in schools. Thus, traditional disciplines like yoga, reading of Sanskrit scriptures, and classical music and dance were given a go by. Local patronage by Indian chieftains and royalty assured some survival and continuity in certain pockets, else most of these traditions would have been lost. In that, the role of local temples as cradle of culture cannot be underestimated, and local nobility supported these temples, thus indirectly these dances got supported. The work of a few pioneering gurus and visitors from abroad also helped these forms get established. The arrival of non-European artists to India at the turn of the 20th century also proved to be a catalyst. Among these, mention can be made of Ruth St. Denis and Ted Shawn, pioneering American dancer, Anne Pavlova and Victor Dandre, Russian star performers, La Mary and Ragini Devi, enterprising American dancers, Louis Lightfoot, Australian talent, and many others. They saw the dismal condition of Indian dances, submerged under a long alien rule of 400 years, and felt sad for these century-old traditions. Dutch writers like Beryl de Zoet and French and Italian travels like Alain Denislew and Tavernier wrote the observations that helped too. The foreign dancers took samples of these forms and helped create a flavor of these dances through their own interpretations, thus giving Indian dances a worldwide audiences and assured survival. These were in form of short items or Hindu dances with popular imagery. They also discovered new partners and thus created stars of the form. Thus, Anna Pavlova discovered and partnered Uday Shankar, who was to become father of modern Indian dance later. La Mary discovered and partnered Ram Gopal, who was to become the king of classical forms, and Ragini Devi discovered and partnered Gopinath, who was to take Kathakali abroad. Ditto Louis Lightfoot and Ananda Shivaram. These foreigners helped reinstate Indian dance art, and such activities got augmented by the slow and steady growth of a nationalist fervor in pre-independence era. When Indians got inspired to fight foreign rule under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, later joined by Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, Maulana Azad, and many more, in that period several regional and new institutions were created for revival, teaching and promotion of our dance forms, chief being Kerala Kalamandalam in 1930s in Kerala to teach Kerala arts of Kathakali and Mohiniyattam, Kalakshetra in Madras in 1940s to teach Bharatanatyam, and Tagore's own Santiniketan in 1930s to teach Manipuri. Kathakali and all available forms. Once India became independent in 1947, lots of forms got a shot in the arm, as it were, and overnight, under the overall nationalistic fervor and spirit of revival, many institutions were created that helped teach and train new adherents. In Delhi, an enlightened industrialist family created the Bharati Kala Kendra, which also housed the Kathak Kendra, Natya Ballet Center, Delhi Ballet Center, and host of institutions came up all over the country, too many to recount here. The first generation of star dancers India produced are Uday Shankar, whose discovery by Anne Pavlova sparked a creative partnership in London and Paris. Soon Shankar returned to India to set up his own dance company, Uday Shankar Dance Company, based in Almora, and engage many, including musicians like Alauddin Khan Sahib, Timir Baran, and Vishnudas Shirali, to create everlasting works. His younger brother, Ravi Shankar, distinguished himself later as a world-class sitarist. His cousin Sachin Shankar joined him in his Almora studio and later created his own dance company in Bombay. His children Ananda and Mamata Shankar both became famous artists. In classical dance, Ram Gopal of Bangalore put three classical dance forms, Bharatanatyam, Kathak and Kathakali, on world map. These two can be called pioneers, for they believed in Indian dance and helped reach out as early as the 1930s and 1940s. They went to gurus in their villages and sought to learn from them. Slowly, traditional teachers called gurus left their villages and settled in big cities and started teaching traditional dances, and thus many more aspirants started learning dance art properly. In Madras alone, in the 1940s, the fountainheads of Bharatanatyam dance could be found in the 40s through the 60s. Guru Muthukumaran Pillai, Guru Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai, Chokalingam Pillai, Erlappa Pillai, Guru Gopinath, even Uday Shankar made full-length feature film Kalpana. All were in Madras, today's Chennai, in that period. In North, thanks to creation of Bharatiya Kala Kendra, a lot of Kathak gurus could come and teach like Shambhu Maharaj, Sundar Prasad, Birju Maharaj. In Bombay, Lachu Maharaj, Mohan Rao Kalyanpurkar, Madam Menka, Sitara Devi, Damayanti Joshi could further the art form of Kathak. In Calcutta, in absence of any classical form, Odissi had not yet been established. Many went to learn from Uday Shankar and other Manipuri gurus, settled there like Amobi Singh. Lahore, then still part of India, had Zohra and Kameshwar Sehgal and Pandit Pyarelal. All of the 1950s and 60s saw a glorious revival of these forms and traditions, and by the 1970s, India was truly dancing. The revival of classical dance forms meant a more prominent visibility to both the art and the artists. Dancers became almost as important as film stars in the 60s and 70s and were major society figures. The cult of prima donnas like Shanta Rao, Indrani Rahman, Yamini Krishnamurti was established. Real dancers also became film stars like Vajayanti Mala, Hema Malini, who went from Madras to Bombay to seek bigger name and fortunes. Since they were trained dancers, they could undertake any kind of role. Indian dance had arrived center stage. By then, Odissi as a dance form was also established and thus joined the pantheon of classical forms. Four legendary gurus, Adi Guru Pankaj Charan Das, Kelucharan Mahapatra, Mayadhar Raut and Devaprasad Das all helped create the repertoire of Odissi. Their students, Rita Devi, Minati Mishra, Indrani Rahman, Kumkum Das, Sanjukta Panigrihi, Sonal Mansingh and Aloka Panikar, Kiran Sehgal all arrived as worthy names on national stage. Gurus of various forms were training new talents all through the 70s. We see most dance forms being revived and performed grandly. No state function was complete without a classical dance performance by a top name. To become a soloist of merit and repute, it takes minimum of 20 years in Indian classical forms. This is because a minimum of 10 years are required for learning, another 10 for arriving professionally. Thus, a dancer starts to train at an early age, at 7 or 9, and by 20 is ready for debut. The next decade goes in gaining experience and professional acclaim. If lucky after that, other things being equal, can one be successful and become a known name, and then the real struggle of maintaining that success starts. All in all, a rather arduous profession with no assured gains. In the 1980s, a slow trend started where those who were not doing or flourishing in solo classical styles wanted to break away and make new artistic statement. Their exposure abroad and world travels also helped them see what was going on in Germany. Kurt Hughes, Pina Bausch, USA, Ted Sean, Ruth St. Denis, Martha Graham, Merce Cunningham, Paul Taylor. France and England did not provide much fodder then. In the earlier 20th century, ballet still ruled roost with ballerinas like Italian Emma Pitteri, Russian Anna Pavlova, and Diaghilev settled in London. These pathbreakers from India who wanted to go beyond the classical tradition, having failed to establish themselves as soloists of repute, were Bharatanatyam dancer Chandralekha and Kathak dancer Kumudini Lakhia. Both had learned traditional styles like Bharatanatyam and Kathak and had tried their hand and feet for decades to become a soloist without much success. Before this cut-off point in 1984, there were true ballet, dance drama and Indian context masters like Uday Shankar, Sachin Shankar, Narendra Sharma, Shanti Bardhan, Prabhat Ganguli, and they basically created dance dramas based on Indian themes. They did not debunk tradition or say classical dance was of little merit. Chandalekha wished to position herself anew and made statements that classical dance had no future. She must have meant she had no future as a soloist in such a form. The best years for soloists in Indian context is 25 to 50 years of age. Unlike in Western ballet traditions where the body is central to dance, in Indian classical forms the soul, the spirit is the key. Body or shape and size of it is almost secondary, though it helps to have a finely tuned body for dance. We have had cases of aging, heavily set dancers, Bala Saraswati, bald men dancing like Kelucharan Mahapatra, but they were all respected as great gurus and legendary dancers. In the 90s, the art of the solo dancer was slowly getting replaced with group art. This happened because of several reasons. Real gurus or master teachers who taught for love of art and not just money were declining. Real students who loved art more than their own glory were fewer. Patronage systems have not kept with growing volume of dancers, and the state fortunately has no evident cultural policy because India did not believe in one and is the size of Europe with bigger population and diversity which no one policy can contain. Group dances also gave a sense of variety and opportunity for more to dance. It also covered up the individual lack of mastery over one idiom as a strong classical foundation was missing. All in all, a dilution of tradition took place. The best known dance talents today in what can be truly called modern or contemporary Indian dance are very few. Daksha Seth, based in Kerala, uses Kathak, Kalari and Chow and is first rate. She takes 5-8 years to create a production and is not in the market for name or glory. She is a true genius and a great artist. The gap after her is immense because most others are copying and cloning each other or are leftovers of Chandralekha and Kumudini structure. A few who have done sustained work are Stad Devu, Aditi Mangal Das of Delhi, Atakalari and STEM groups of Bangalore. Classical dance continues to rule roost because modern dance lacks clear language or direction and audiences mix fusion for confusion. Fusion dance is a shortcut to several demanding dance realities. Few students have time and talent to learn for long. There are really no real gurus or masters left. Teachers have become gurus, and there is a vast difference between the two. A guru was not in the market only about name and fame. It was about passion and pursuing an art form. But today, urban India and its realities have also contributed to new contexts of time, space. Both are at premium. Thus, learning and performing fusion dance is comparatively easy. Fusion dance in Indian context today does not merely mean a sensible mix of two or more forms of style. It does not mean that one can mix one hand of Bharatanatyam with one leg of Kathak, do makeup of Kathakali and dance in slow pace of Manipuri. Martial forms like Chow and Kalari have gained currency because they look dramatic and fulsome, and in group they look very handsomely possible. Thus, fusion is not a defined merging, a defined form. Each practitioner does his or her own, and none really have the staying power of an item for more than 10 minutes or more. Whereas in classical forms, when we see one could do a Varnam for 40 minutes, to do a production in fusion for that period of time or more, one needs costumes, space, lights, and first-rate choreographer or director. In fusion, minimum training or none can help one create some esoteric items that can be called anything: wind, air, water, karma, reaching out, looking within. Any fancy and vague title will do, and more esoteric and vague, the better. This type is easy to do, as a creator generally takes the liberty of simply borrowing or stealing any existing music of any composer. Bach rubs shoulder with Keith Jarrett and L. Subramaniam with Pavarotti. Some vague body movements, some stretches, and some international-looking shining leotard costumes are all one needs to arrive on stage, and also on page 3, society pages. Increasingly, films do support and offer these new bastardized forms because it is new. In the name of innovation, anything goes, and while many group and talents spring up often, few last beyond 2 seasons. Thus, fusion is not taken seriously as dance culture. When they can't do serious classical style, the shortcut is fusion. Hence, they help create confusion. After 10 years of this new genre, fusion, many in the audiences wish to return to pure traditional forms and their beauty. Thus, it is always a delight to see an Alaimel Valli, who ranks supreme in Bharatanatyam talent of today. None have the staying power, the brilliance of the form, and the beauty of art like her. Leela Sampson, Malvika Sarukai, Satyanarayan Raju, and Urmila Satyanarayan show seriousness of purpose. In Odissi, there is a big gap between generation last, Sanjukta Panigrahi, Aloka Panikar, and Kiran Sehgal, and generation next. And by default, it is filled by Madhavi Mudgal, whose aesthetics are high but dance appeal cold. Good lights and costumes can enhance, but not entirely make up for beauty and depth of classical dances. Shamila Biswas of Calcutta is slowly emerging as someone with a difference in Odissi. The Pratima Bedi students of Nrityagram have mastered the art of presentation and are successful abroad with dramatic lights and poses. At home, this novel institution Pratima created is in shambles with no students or teachers and a handful of girls trying to remain relevant. In Kathak, soloists of merit are hard to name as most do group work now, but Malati Rawat is one exception. Rajendra Gangani, Maulik Shah remain somewhat senior, while youngsters Tushar Bhatt and Swikrit are beginning to make a mark. In Kuchipudi, Vajayanti Kashi and Anand Shankar Jayant are in good form today, and in Mohiniyattam, Deepthi Bhalla, Om Cherry and Neena Prasad try be true form. The popular dances on TV with Boogie Woogie, Nach Baliye, Dance India dance shows running for decades reflect young India and its aspirations, and suddenly many more seem to be dancing today. In last 20 years, India has become a young and modern technologically progressive nation. Today it has world's largest young populace, nearly 60% of it, 1 billion population is under 25 years of age. Imagine 600 million people under 25-30 years of age. It's a big resource and challenge. In future, what do we see of Indian dance? The plate is full and overflowing. There are thousands of classically trained dancers who seem to be at it and perform even when there is no obvious support systems. Most performances are not ticketed, and relatives and friends make for the audiences. The press is generous because it needs to fill space, and cricket and football not being played daily. Critical appraisal having gone out of newspapers, only page 3 society columns are left. Quality has been taken over by quantity. Specialized dance-related journals like Shruti, Attendance, Nartanam and Angarag help dispel dance news and views, while specific dance sites like nartaki.com do their bit for internet-savvy readers. Classical dance being always marginalized in most societies, Indian dances are no exception. Audiences are limited though committed. The symbol of Nataraja, Lord of the Dance, is pan-Indian. Big cities, and that means nearly 10 million people, are busy teaching, projecting and propagating dance forms, and while many parents desire their children learn some art form, especially in South India, the insular and civilized part of India, the lack of professional avenues make it difficult to pursue as a career. It is customary that most children learn some dance form, especially girls, till they are 20 and then decide if it is to be a profession. Pushy parents seeking social esteem and better marriage prospects also encourage their daughters to learn, so if nothing else, it helps them in deportment, social graces and confidence levels. Once married, family life and responsibilities take over. 90% of those who learn for 5-10 years age between 10 to 20 never take to stage professionally. Dance is a calling, not a career. Fusion dance in India today is still evolving. It needs lot more inputs, and I'm sure with time some of you in this class might be the future of fusion dance in India.